Good evening, everybody, and happy Independence Day. Now, I was planning on doing some, knee-high by the 4th of July post about my corn, but it's going to have to be a pretty tall person for it to be knee-high. So instead of doing anything about that, I decided while I'm out here in the cornfield, I might let you guys in on a little tradition that I do every year on July 4th. And that is reading the Declaration of Independence. To be honest, it's something I wish more people would do. Maybe then people could truly appreciate what a wonderful country this is if they better understood the principles upon which it was founded. But since Nicolas Cage has the copy from the National Archives and I don't really have it memorized, I guess I'll just read it off my phone. July 4th, 1776. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably to the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government, and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right, ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And of the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. The men that signed this declaration knew exactly what they were doing. They knew they were signing their death warrants. But they did it anyways, because the principles of freedom, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, was worth giving everything they had. These men came from varying walks of life. They're lawyers, jurists, farmers, merchants, plantation owners, and many of them would see their lives, their fortunes, everything destroyed. 5 of these signers were captured by the British and tortured as traitors. 12 had their homes ransacked and burned. 2 lost their sons in the Revolutionary Army. Another 2 had sons captured. 9 of the 56 fought and died from wounds or hardships of the Revolutionary War. Carter Braxton of Virginia pledged his fortune and saw his ships swept from the seas by the British and died in abject poverty. Thomas McKean also died in abject poverty. Vandals and soldiers, or well, pretty well both, looted properties of Ellery, Clymer, Hall, Walton, Gwinnett, Hayward, Rutledge, and Middleton. Thomas Nelson Jr. knew that General Cornwallis was holed up in his home, and he urged George Washington to destroy it. He died bankrupt. Francis Lewis had his home and properties destroyed. The British jailed his wife, and she died. The most tragic, though, of all these, John Hart. He was driven from his wife's bedside as she was dying. Their 13 children fled for their lives. His fields, his grist mill, they were all laid to waste. For more than a year, he lived on the run in forests and caves, and he returned home. His wife had succumbed, and his children had vanished. A few weeks later, he died of a broken heart. Norris, Livingston, they too suffered similar fates. Now, I'm not trying to tell you their stories in order to make this a somber event. Far from it. This is a day of celebration. This is the day that we celebrate the founders that wagered everything. And some got called on that wager. But they were willing to give it all because they had the moral clarity and the principles that were needed to establish one of the greatest nations on this planet. So while you're out this evening, watching the rockets' red glare and the bombs bursting in air, you know, all that good stuff, take a minute, reflect, and appreciate the moral clarity, the sacrifice, and the unwavering determination of the founders who helped make this great nation. Happy Independence Day, everybody. Be safe out there. Please come back home with all your digits. Hope to see you next time. And as always, thanks for stopping by.